The main purpose of these two functions is to look up a value in a big data table and give you a corresponding value back that's sitting in the same row. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the value that you're looking up has to be on the leftmost column, and the value that's being returned has to be on an adjacent column. Now, left is the key word here. So you can't look up a value on the right side and return a value on the left side. The VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP work in the same way, except that V is for vertical lookups and H is for horizontal lookups. So if your data table has column headers, you're going to need VLOOKUP, and if your data table has row headers, you're going to need HLOOKUP. So let's have a look at an example for each. For this demo, imagine you've been given a large set of data and you've been told, okay, these are the sales agents, the quantity they sold, the money they got, the price they charged, and their customers. What you like to do is to create an overview agent report where you select the agent and you find the price and the customer from this table. As a first step, we're going to add our drop-down. It's what we learned in an earlier lecture on data validation. So we're going to go to data validation. Instead of any value, select list, and the source is our agent. So press Ctrl, Shift, and the down arrow key. And now we get to select our agents from here. Now for the agent we select, we'd like to find the price. That's where our VLOOKUP formula comes in. The first argument in the VLOOKUP formula is the lookup value, what we're looking up. In this case, we're looking up the agent, which is in this cell. Next comes the table array. You have to remember that this is the full table, so the full range where your lookup value is in and your answers are in. And it's one range. So you're not supposed to select different ranges by holding Control down and going like this, but instead you select the entire range, which in this case is from here to here. I'm going to press again Control Shift down. That's my range. And keep in mind that the key, the main thing is that this agent D is the first one in this range. It has to be on the left-hand side. Even if I don't need quantity and revenue, I have to highlight them because they're in my way. They're in the way of me getting to price and customer. So you always have to select the entire range, even if there's stuff in there that you don't need. Next is the column index number. And that basically means how much should it move. So it assumes that the first one is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, in which column is the answer that you want? We want the price, and that makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column. We have to put 4 in there. And this last argument is important to get right if your lookup value is text and not a number. If you leave it empty, it defaults to true, which means that an exact match is not necessary, but it requires that your lookup column is sorted in ascending order. If it's not sorted in ascending order and you leave this argument empty, then you're probably going to receive an error. In our case, we have it sorted as ascending, but generally, I don't want to be bothered to think, is this text, is this a number, is it sorted or not? So I always put false in here, meaning that these should be an exact match. I recommend that you generally put this on false as well. Okay, so let's check this agent D. The price here is 39, rounded 39. Now what about the customer? I can follow the same logic. Again, my lookup value is agent D. The table I'm looking this up is here, and my customer should be included. Which column is the customer? The last one, which makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth column, and false as the last argument. Customer D for agent D. Customer H, 37 for agent H. I have a very simple dynamic report using VLOOKUP. You can also use VLOOKUP within formulas. They don't have to be used on their own alone like this. So for example, if I wanted to find price here, and let's assume I didn't have price in my source data, I actually need to calculate it. I could write a formula on this, and I could say, well, divide the revenue by the quantity. And to tell it which revenue to divide by which quantity, I will use the VLOOKUP formula and say lookup agent H in this area. I want the revenue first, so that's number 3, false as the last argument, and divide this by the result of the VLOOKUP formula for quantity. Quantity is number 2. And that gives me my price. So agent H is 37. As you can see, VLOOKUP doesn't have to be used on its own, but can be used within other formulas. Agent N is 42, customer N. And now let me show you the HLOOKUP version of this. So in case your original source data is not provided in this way, but instead in rows, so I'm going to copy this. We're going to move down here. I'm going to paste this as transpose. Okay, so in case you have your data provided to you in this way, which is less likely, but it's possible, and you want to do the same type of lookup and the same type of overview report, you will have to use the HLOOKUP function. So in the same way, if you have our sales agent, let me just copy this down. Let me write new formulas. So in the same manner, if we want to find the price of agent N from this table, we're going to write HLOOKUP. The lookup value is this. Our table array is this. Don't forget that what you're looking up here needs to be the first in your table array. Next is the row index number instead of the column index. So where is price in here? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the 4th row. And again, do false. The same with customer. I can actually copy this, paste this in here, because this remains the same. That's what I'm looking up. My table is the same. Instead of 4, what number do I need? 5. Customer N. Agent P is here right at the end. 40 is my price, and customer P is there. Okay, if instead of price I wanted to find quantity, the only thing I need to change is my index number. And quantity is number 2. So I get 8. That's the HLOOKUP function. To recap, one major limitation of the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP formulas is that they can't look to the left. So what if we wanted it the other way around? That instead of selecting the agent here, we were going to select the customer and get back the agent here. We wouldn't be able to use the classical VLOOKUP formula. We're going to need to have to change the table by bringing customer to the left-hand side because the value we're looking up always has to be on the left-hand corner.